Hi, I'm Pax.
And I'm Abigail.
Welcome to Ghost Spider Groupies, a podcast dedicated to Gwen Stacy of Earth 65, also known as Spider-Gwen and Ghost Spider, where we review her comics, discuss news, and give our opinions about all things Gwen 65.
Right now, we are reading through Gwen's main solo series. Each week, we break down a new arc and discuss our and the listener's thoughts. Tune into each episode and come on this journey through the character's history with us, available wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Yes, welcome back, loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 232, and you are with your High Priestess KHONSHU Ray. Hello, and I'll be flying solo this week. Unfortunately, some scheduling issues have restricted me getting on a special guest. We were going to have Drew Toombs on. Hopefully, Drew, we can have you on some other time in the short future. But fear not, loonies, a couple of episodes coming your way. And as always, at the top of the week, we'll have an idle chat. And this time around, we're looking at Moon Knight music. So I wanted to just kind of get into, I don't know, I think if you've ever read a comic book or read a trade paperback and you had some music playing in your head as you read it, I'm just wondering what music would you associate for the various volumes of Moon Knight? Each of them are very different in flavour, so that could potentially mean the style and the genre of the music that you have in your head while you read these comics could be very different and indeed. And I thought it'd be an interesting thing to throw out to the loonies there. So I did actually cast a line out only just recently. This is High Priest Ray going fishing. So hopefully by the time we get to some listener feedback, I'm going to pull in my line and see if we have any bites with anyone out there. But look, I'll go through with you, potentially give you some recommendations of some songs that I may associate with the particular titles or the runs of Moon Knight throughout, from the 80s to present. Before any of that, of course, a big thank you to our patronies, those listed as co-producers and executive producers on each of our episodes. You can see their names in each of the episodes in the credits, and you can also see them in the Patroni Hall of Fame. I can't remember what I called it. The Patroni Temple on our website, itkmoonnight.com. Go check it out there, and all our Patronies are listed there. Thanking you very much, each and every one of you, for your contribution. It really does. I'm so excited. Like, from 2017, when we started this show, up until present day, the things that we've been able to do thanks to you guys helping out, and a big shout out to the community as well. I'm just loving it. It's growing. It's going to get bigger. Look, just steel yourselves, everyone that is part of the community now, steel yourselves. There might be a few more once the TV show hits, but it's exciting times to be a loony for sure. So a big thank you to the likes of Daniel, Drew, Justin, Derek, Kyle, Wayne, Jordan, Josh, James, Anthony, and Michael. Thank you very, very much, each and every one of you. And of course, our two top-tier patronies are also our sponsors too. So Drooms on SoundCloud and Lurk Music on Bandcamp. Both of these are the monikers of Drew Toombs. Toombs on SoundCloud is dance music produced by Drew, and Lurk Music on Bandcamp, Drew does some horror and sci-fi inspired soundscapes. Also as well, comic book creator Daniel Doing and Fringe Night, an original indie comic based on Erie, Pennsylvania's very own mysterious superhero. Go check it out, I urge you to. Daniel's doing great stuff. He's got loads, banked that he wants to tell. He's got plenty of stories to tell. It's a great character. and Pennsylvania's own character as well, so that's pretty cool. Check that out too. And finally, Dreamland Comics from Illinois, the superhero superstore, all your back issue needs. More details from all of those sponsors towards the end of the show. Now, as for White Noise, look, there isn't too much out there, but I just wanted to read through some of these responses from some of the loonies. So one of last week, I think Noel and I discussed about this news of Mark Ruffalo being photographed outside the same hotel in Budapest as Oscar Isaac by a enthusiastic fan. That kind of got tongues wagging as to whether or not Bruce Banner will appear in Moon Knight in some capacity. So the question was kind of thrown out there in our community as well. We've all heard the speculation, but what does everyone think about this theory why Hulk could be in the series? Now, regardless of whether he is in it or not, I think there are many reasons why, he would be in that hotel, not necessarily connected to the TV show, but, we can always speculate and spector-late and have some fun. So we got some responses here from some loonies, so I just want to read some of them out. One of them, loony Jonathan Sapsed, said, they're trying to create wider interest with a well-known MCU character. I prefer it to be focused on Moon Knight's street level, but they have both converged with the multiple personality disorder in the comics the last years, which is definitely an interesting point and a common thread between the two. Bruce Banner, now more of actually DID, dissociative identity disorder, similar to what Moon Knight has been labelled with as well. And we know more recently in the Bemis run that there was that childhood trauma. Of course, Bruce Banner, as a young boy, for those that actually follow Hulk, you would know that there was definitely severe childhood trauma there, which could explain the various Hulks that have come out. The Savage Hulk, Joe Fixit. We now have Immortal Hulk, Devil Hulk, World Breaker Hulk. There are plenty of identities in there. So that's a good catch there, Jonathan. Thank you. Also, Alex Montalban says, I can see why, though. Moon Knight's dealing with another personality. Since Banner was able to be at one with the Hulk, Mark probably goes to him for advice. Though Shang-Chi throws that out of the window. Yeah, thank you, Alex, as well. A bit of a cryptic last line there about Shang-Chi. I'll get into that, I think, a little bit later, because I did manage to watch it. Cheeky Ray managed to watch that. And I'll tell you my thoughts on that anyway. But not spoilers, no spoilers, so don't worry, you're safe here. But looking back at Alex's further, earlier comments, that's a really cool take. I like that, Alex. How they're coming together and Mark looking towards Bruce Banner for advice on how to deal with it. Very cool. Next up we have some comments from Lena. Now, Lena, some of you loony listeners will know, has been contributing and been a big part of our initiative to understand DID more in, and we have like a sub-segment of that in our idle chats, generally precursor to the release of the new comic book issue. It just seemed appropriate to get a regular idle chat kind of segment, regularly coming out once a month, same as the comic. Anyway, Lena says, if that is the reason why Bruce Hulk is on Moon Knight, that could be very interesting and could go a long way toward reducing the stigma attached to the DID in the show. I know that Moon Knight is supposed to be a violent and scary vigilante, but I hope that they are careful to make the point that he's not scary because of his DID, but because of either his mercenary past or his connection to KHONSHU or something like that. I thought they did a fairly decent job with Mary Walker, I'm assuming the Typhoid Mary, I guess, yes, in Netflix Iron Fist Season 2. So that gives me some hope that they can do well with this. Thank you very much, Lena. And yeah, for sure, I think so too. I I'm hoping, I guess, the scary element of Moon Knight comes more from his ability to shed blood and his past. You know, he's a man who used to be a merc, who's done terrible things. He obviously has red on his ledger. So he has no qualms with crossing the line, so to speak. I mean, again, that's a bit of a stereotype, but I guess what I'm saying is once you've killed, and him being a mercenary, then he finds killing, I think, a little easier than people who have never killed before, that sort of stuff. Also, as well, for sure, he's dwelling on the KHONSHU aspect of it and how that plays within his mind as well. That might produce something scary from within. But I guess we'll wait and see, Lena. But thank you very much for your comments. And finally, from Samuel Leon Kiffin, there's an old Moon Knight comic back when he was powered by the moon. Hulk punches Moon Knight in the dark. Neither knew it was each other, though. Yes, and I had a little chat with Samuel on this thread. Basically, yeah, that was from the Hulk magazine back in the day. I don't have it in my prom sheet. I'm sorry, Samuel, you did cite it. I think you said it was 15, something along those lines. Written by Doug Mensch, penciled beautifully by Bill Sienkiewicz. It's Bill's earlier style. I think it was before he really found his own style. So he was very much emulating Neil Adams. He could very well, and this is an interesting point, Samuel was saying that he could have just used that style in particular to give that kind of pulpy feel. And it definitely has a very different pulpy nature to the story. I love it. It's great. If you haven't read it, go track it down and give it a read. It's pretty funny. You actually get then two perspectives. One from Moon Knight's perspective of this kind of hulking behemoth in the shadows, and then you actually have one from the Hulk's perspective of, just stumbling around in the woods, finding these guys which he comes across, and then this strange white angel or whatever, which is Moon Knight. Very cool. So thank you for those comments. Finally, the other little bit of news which did pop up, I did read, and it did pop up in our Discord as well. But shout out to Rebecca there. I think Rebecca dropped it. But what we have is there was an article with Mohammed Diab. So he's one of the main director in the Moon Knight TV series coming up, and it mentions in the article that yes, he'll be directing 4 of the 6 episodes. So we know at least that he's doing 2/3 of the whole series, which should be fun. It also makes mention that he wrote a 200-page odd pitch. He wrote that along with his wife, and I think they said along the lines of, look, if we don't get it from this, then something is seriously wrong. But, I guess they were correct, because they did land the job. And looking forward to seeing what they do. There was a little bit of talk, again, I'm just going off the top of my head, I think it mentioned in that same article a couple of things on how there are going to be some very kind of scary moments in there, but there are also going to be some very funny ones. And that kind of got some of the loonies kind of thinking. I know some of them responded saying, well, Moon Knight isn't a funny character. So they were a bit confused as to why Diab had said that. But who knows? I mean, again, we've been thrown strange things at us as well. And granted, we're probably not going to get the exact Moon Knight that we see in the comics. I mean, let's look at all the other characters that have come on screen. They're not like, you would be arguably massively disappointed at, say, the arc of the Hulk. I'm a massive Hulk fan myself. I feel he was severely underdone in the MCU. But he had to make way for the likes of the better arcs of course, Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, and even Thor to that extent as well. So Hulk actually took a back seat, unfortunately, and still kind of grinds me a little how he got beaten so easily by Thanos. But anyway, that's just me. I might as well take this opportunity to talk a little bit about Shang-Chi. Don't worry, spoiler-free. All I'm going to say was that I thoroughly enjoyed it. And having read the Shang-Chi comics by Doug Mensch back in the 70s. Look, it's totally revamped. It's not the Shang-Chi that you would potentially have grown up with or been used to, with that more kind of espionage / MI6 vibe. It's very different now, but I'm excited to see the Shang-Chi in the MCU. He's very... I just can't say anything else, but it's a very beautiful looking film. I think the director, Kristen, is that his name? He did a fantastic job. The actors are amazing. Shout outs to basically all Awkwafina, Tony Leung, Michelle Yeoh, Simu Liu as well. Fantastic. That they did so well with it. As I said, it's visually stunning. The action is awesome. It's very much of its own thing as well, but it's so cool to know that it's part of the MCU. So hats off to such a great film. I regard it highly. It's going to be one that I'm going to go to, if ever I feel bored or feel like a fun film. Really good film. But anyway, tracking back, Shang-Chi interpreted very differently, and I'm sure Moon Knight will be interpreted very differently as well. So, look, there's always going to be a little bit of humour. Marvel is known for it. There'll always be a little bit of humour injected in the shows and the movies that they do, but let's hope that it's not, it's not in the forefront all the time. I mean, because of course there is some intensity and seriousness to Moon Knight, which I think Oscar Isaac and the likes of Ethan Hawke will do very well. So, the final bit of news as well was just an article that was released from an interview with Ethan Hawke, and he basically just says the key difference between Moon Knight and Spider-Man. And I'm quickly looking at so he was interviewed in The Wrap, and so Ethan Hawke basically goes through. He basically says the likes of Spider-Man and Bruce Wayne and such is that they have a lot of baggage, that, there's such a legacy to the character that has been shown on screen, that there's so much that you've got to consider and if you're going to interpret that character again. Whereas with Moon Knight, there's literally no baggage unless you count the animated appearances. So Ethan Hawke loved that freedom that this character has given him, and plus it gets to, he mentions as well, like, what does he say, in the 50s, if you're an actor in the 50s, you kind of jumped at the chance to be in a western because they were such a big thing. In the 2020s, in the 2000s, actors now jump to be part of the massive machine that is the Marvel Studios, or DC, or to some extent some other comic book movies. But that's his kind of justification, I guess, as well, of being part of this big experience and getting his bit to play. But the beauty with Moon Knight is that, it's there's no baggage to the character, and you can interpret it, and which makes it interesting to see what we do get to see. As mentioned, know that it's not going to be a direct adaptation of the comic book character. There will be tweaks. So, please expect that, loonies. We're not going to get exactly what, as I drop my phone, we're not going to get exactly, what is on the printed page. Those are the little bits of news. Nothing else. Oh, geez, I wish there was more. But we'll just have to stay tuned. But let's get on to a Moon Knight and music. So, what I've got here, I've got a little table of all the volumes of Moon Knight, and look, it was all meant to be off the cuff, so I actually haven't got anything written in those tables, just got the list of them, and I was going to just throw them out and see what I can come up with. So, at the very beginning, like the Doug Mensch run, 1980, with that kind of, it's still, I guess it has a little bit of a pulpy feel, but there's as the series goes along, it's 38 issues long. There's so many different aspects to it. gets grim and dark, with the, what was it, the shooting star, that cult that tried to abduct Jack Russell. You've got some weird kind of horror aspects. Issue 5 was cool. You have Stained Glass Scarlet. There's a really different feel around it, and I'm going to try and veer away from just picking something of the time as well. So 1980, I mean, I wouldn't say I would associate, your generic 80s music to it. If anything, I'd still probably put a bit more of a 70s kind of cinematic music vibe to it, I think. Just because, also as well, it's globetrotting as well. So not only does he have some cases in the US and in the Bronx or Brooklyn, I can't remember which one, but he also jet sets all over the place. Like we just recently covered Assault on Island Strange, the Third World Army, that sort of stuff. The Third World Army is very much for me like a 70s kind of espionage. Maybe some sort of, I don't know, James Bondy thing. Yeah, I think maybe more James Bondy kind of cinematic score I would give for Mensch, about 1980 all the way up to the end. Some dodgy villains. I think the Blacksmith as well that comes in there. But then he gets some great issues also, like Black Spectre, the introduction of Carson Knowles, Morpheus, that darkness as well. So let's start off with just something kind of, I don't know, creepy and James Bondy. Let's stick to that. Next up, we have Fist of Khonshu. Now this is more of a mystical part to it, because we get the introduction of the High Priests, the powers that now are part of the Moon for Moon Knight. And he gets more of that Egyptian kind of bling. He gets a bit of an upgrade with his costume. For this music, again, this is a tough one. This is probably out of my purview, music wise, other than kind of sticking with kind of what I know, like with cinema scores, composition, that sort of stuff. This is a weird one. It was quite eclectic, I think, for a 6-issue mini. So I might have to go for some. I'm going to go for some weird ass classical composers for this, and I'm talking about more of the modern composers. So, Xenakis, Stockhausen, Berio. These are German, Italian, and Greek composers. Very much were into serial music. So atonal. So for those that are familiar with some music, it does not anchor itself to any particular key or home key, or it doesn't actually. There's no potential resolution in the conventional sense. So Arnold Schoenberg was a massive kind of innovator in this sort of music. Anyway, I reckon, say Stockhausen, Berio, and Xenakis. That's what I'm going to say. It's very mathematical based, but it gives you a very kind of off-kilt, not entirely always pleasant kind of listening. Sometimes it is a challenge to listen to, because it's not like your Beethoven or your Mozarts that you're familiar with, not pleasant, lovely melodies. It's all very more academic. It's all very more proportional, and it's manipulating the music more with with, I guess, the very mathematical side of music. So anyway, that's a weird one for you, but that's how I kind of word associate music for Fist of Khonshu. Yes. Now, the next one should be a little bit easier. Mark Spector Moon Knight. So we get a massive 60-issue run there. And so what sort of music would you listen to during, for this run? And I'd have to say, because some of the issues here are granted are very 90s, I'm going to stick to some of my wheelhouse here and go for a lot of 90s music. I'm going to give you, some listeners, some recommendations of some local talent, actually, over here in Australia, which I want to give a shout out to some listening, if you can track it down on Spotify or whatnot. But definitely, I think for Mark Spector, look, it's fun. It's swashbuckling to an extent as well. It's kind of, I get visions of, although I don't think it was in the 90s, I get visions of kind of like that Die Hard kind of theme to it with John McClane, just kind of that action-packed adventure. But I think it's got a little bit of a, I wouldn't say dark, it's not as dark as The Crow, so to speak. I'm just thinking of the Brandon Lee film. Definitely is not as dark as that, but it could use with some rock elements as well. So for me, some Aussie bands, big heavy stuff. Crow, which were one of my favourite bands, definitely worth checking out. I think they would fit really well with Mark Spector Moon Knight. Look, just flashing through in my head some of the issues, whether it be the Acts of Vengeance or Frenchie's Killer Shrike grudge match, or Mooney's team up with Ghost Rider to go against the Cult of the Moon, or towards the latter part of it, the Infinity War crossovers with that multiverse, or Mark's Affliction of a Decaying Body, all that sort of stuff. For me, very embodies very much the 90s, and it gets really weird at the end, of course. So, maybe a bit of, I don't know, a bit of Rollins band in there. You get a bit of Henry Rollins in there. And I don't know, they're not 90s, so to speak, but I love my Dead Kennedys, and I'm sure I can fit in some Dead Kennedys in some of those issues there. Maybe, let me think, not so much a troll of Mark Spector, but perhaps that the ones with that dude that looks like he's a rip-off of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think his name was just Chainsaw, which was very, very odd. But there you go, Mark Spector, very, very 90s. I'm trying to think of some 90s bands, not so much mainstream, but they could. No, look, I don't know. Otherwise, I'll just rattle off some other ones. But those would be good. Next one would be Resurrection War. Now, for this, I thought, just with the look of the art, and for Doug Mensch, and this kind of thing about Mark coming back, and it's all a bit kind of really kind of weird in that sense. I would tend to kind of go towards something like The Cure for this. I don't know if anyone are fans of The Cure, but I think they'll do really well for that kind of vibe of a mini-series. Tommy Lee Edwards' arts and colours from, I think, his wife or his sister. Very good indeed. And this kind of, I guess, the ambiguity of Mark coming back after he died at the end of Mark Spector Moon Knight, just gives that. I mean, The Cure have that kind of, I don't know, they have that otherworldly vibe to an extent. So, so that's for Resurrection War. I'll give you that one band for them. As for High Strangers, oh my gosh, that's a weird one. That's very, a very strange tale as well. Again, I'm looking at Loch Ness monsters, UFOs. It's bonkers, again, to use the same description as what Rebecca and I had mentioned when we reviewed this. This would be strange. I would strange. What would I give for this? Maybe The Doors? I think, because it's just a bit weird. Maybe The Doors and a bit of the latter day Tim Buckley Star Sailor kind of. I think it's Star Sailor and Lorca, where he really starts to experiment with his music as well. I don't know if anyone hasn't listened to Tim Buckley, the late great father to the late great Jeff Buckley. Do yourself a favour. He died way too young, 24. I think his last words were "bye-bye, birdie." But big friends of Jim Morrison, had an amazing voice. If you thought Jeff Buckley had a good voice, Tim Buckley's range is just amazing. And he was so diverse. He released so many albums as well, I think 12 plus. This is from a 24-year-old and a very short career. So anyway, the latter stages of Tim Buckley's work there, where he gets a little bit more experimental, I reckon there. Or maybe, I'm going to say the Velvet Underground as well. A bit of Lou Reed and a bit more of their experimentation too. You can tell I kind of like that kind of music, because now I've just got in my head Sonic Youth, and I'm trying to fit them in somewhere. But anyway, maybe they can go into the Mark Spector Moon Knight bundle. I'm not too sure. Next, we have a big one. We have the Charlie Houston run, 2006. For this would have to be kind of a bit more on the heavier side, heavier and darker. And I'm going to give an Australian example as well, just to recommend out there as well. There was a band called Mark of Cain, very heavily influenced from Henry Rollins, I dare say, the vocalists. They were three-piece, made a whole heap of noise, a lot more noise than three people should be able to make. I'd give them a go for the Houston run. Maybe Helmet, really great band as well. I like them too. Just kind of heavy-ish. I wanted to mention Alice in Chains somewhere. Just totally forgot that. So maybe we'll bundle them back in the 90s as well. Maybe a bit of Alice in Chains in Mark Spector Moon Knight too. Very kind of situational or chronological. But yeah, the Houston run, needs some oomph. And I know a lot of loonies love that run. So looking to those heavier ones. I know there are a lot of heavy metal fans in our community as well. Unfortunately, I do not have that much knowledge of that genre, so I cannot speak to it. Pantera, is that outdated? Let me know, listeners, let me know. Similar with the Benson run, so Benson came straight after, looked very similar to the Houston run, but we do see Moon Knight going down south. But we also see him in God's Country, tackling on the Black Spectre. There are some weird and wacky adventures there. Highlights Tigra with, or is it Bushman, KHONSHU / Tigra, recline there for Moon Knight. There's Mark putting on a face in the bathroom, and Marlene walks in on him. Some crazy stuff there. Then there's the Toltec, is that it? A Toltec? Oh gosh, okay. That Mayan, we never really got to see more of it. That killing machine down south, and with the Zapata brothers, the Mexican wrestlers, they were cool. So all very, very kind of very cool little run there. There's also the Texera artwork, that sort of stuff. Dark Avengers, all that sort of stuff. Similar to, I think, Houston, it would require a little bit more darker, heavier kind of music, and for that, maybe I'm showing my head when I'm going for all the 90s. I was about to say maybe some Soundgarden or some Audio Slave for that. Also, I don't know, with the... I was going to save it for later, but I might... No, I'll save that one for later. I was going to say, with the Down South version, you'd probably want... I was thinking maybe a lot of potential Robert Rodriguez scores from his movies. Is it Desperado? That sort of stuff. I used to watch a lot of his films because he was a bit of a flavour back in the particular day. I think when From Dusk to Dawn came out. But anyway, I'll give that a go for the Benson run. Again, looking at heavier rock bands. I just want to pick a good one here for you. I'm drawing a blank, so we'll just leave it at that. Okay, Vengeance of the Moon Knight. Look, there's a little bit more fun involved in this one, and it comes across as a little lighter, although it still has a lot of kind of violent tendencies. So we see the likes of, cameo of Deadpool. We see Crawley being hit on the head and losing his articulate nature and then just speaking kind of like streetwise. Then he gets hit again. We get the carbonadium armor holding up the building and Moon Knight fighting in his underpants. So there's a little bit of fun in there. We get Sentry, all that sort of stuff. So I'd say high octane, just pure kind of rock music for this. It's got to be fun, and it's got to be kind of like, I don't know, maybe the Foo Fighters, that sort of stuff. That vibe where they don't take themselves too seriously, but they do their craft well. They do their rock well. So anything to do with David Grohl, get him in there. Great songwriter, good tunes. I reckon Foo Fighters would probably suit that to a T. But you need that kind of actiony element. So Vengeance of the Moon Knight for that. Then we move to the Bendis run. Strange, the Bendis run as well. I would again maybe give it more of a cinematic feel to it, just because I'm thinking of the Alex Maleev art and the scope of the story with Count Nefaria and Ultron, and you have Echo in there as well. It just seems more of the film score kind of thing to that, and I would probably I'd probably just say choose one of your favourite film scores, action film scores potentially, and slap that on for the Bendis reads. Because I think that would. I mean, there's some action in there as well, but it's more kind of like an undercurrent in the music, something that's always kind of on in the background as these scenes play out. So for Bendis, I'd say that. Then we kind of get Wood, we get Ellis, Wood, and Bunn. And look, I'm going to lump them together. I know they all have their three different takes, different stories, different arcs, but they did come really quickly one after the other, and they're always they're collected in the trade paperback in a similar looking format, so they kind of seem like a set. I think this is kind of easy-ish in the sense, I'm going to have to split them up anyway. For the Warren Ellis one, definitely, I think for me, a noir feel because of the Mr. Knight coming in, and regardless of the different sorts of tales that were told in those 6 different issues, ranging from seeing a Frankenstein's monster kind of down in the sewers in issue 1, to hallucinogenic mushrooms, to charging up a building in issue 5, to a pseudo Black Spectre in issue 6. It all has Mr. Knight as being a very confident and self-assured character, but just the fact that introduction in issue 1 with Detective Flint and the other police officers with Mr. Knight, I think it just gives that edge of some kind of film noir saxophone, just kind of jazzy kind of feel to it. So I would suggest them. Sticking to the jazz and the strange, with Wood's run as well, that kind of run in the middle before it's capped off with the bun run. I would give that. There's an Australian jazz band called the Necks, and they just build these soundscapes. Again, it's just three guys, all accomplished jazz musicians, piano, bass, and drums, and they do this kind of their tracks are like 23 half-hour long tracks. They just build and build and build on sound, and they riff off each other. Some of it's kind of like a repetitive rhythm, so you kind of almost get into a trance. And I would give that to the Wood run as well, because definitely he's delving into his psyche in that run. So I'd go for that. As for the Bun run, which is a bit more, it goes kind of back to the Ellis vibe, but there's a bit more supernatural horror elements to it. I would go for what I'm going to go. Okay, I'm going to go for another Australian obscure band, and if you can find them, please do. They're a band called Vicious Hairy Mary, and their type of music was kind of rock, but they described it as like nightmare rock. So the guy would always sing through like a megaphone. He put on this kind of voice that made him sound kind of scary, like a circus ringleader / porcelain doll, / Chucky. So there was very nightmarish music. But they also did some really funny covers. Like they did covers to the Spanish Flea. They did covers to I think it was the Simpsons theme. But all as if you were listening to that in a nightmare. Really scary stuff. But I think that would do well with the Cullen Bun run. Again, listeners, if you know of any music similar to that, I'd love to hear it. Like, please give me those names, because Vicious Hairy Mary for me were the only ones doing that to some extent, and I can't think of any other band that would do that kind of style. I love it. Okay, we just got some trouble outside. I'll just wait for them to pass. Oh, it's like they've stopped outside our house. No, they haven't. Anyway, we're nearly there, listeners. We've got the Lemire run. Now, the Lemire run, I think is great in the sense that it's so internal, and it ranges from many things. You see Mark's childhood. You get the personalities with the different artists, which is a fantastic component. With Small Word, James Stocco, Wilfredo Torres, Francesco Francavilla, that sort of stuff. And you get a retelling of his origin as well as that weirdness of having the other void or the overvoid as like a vessel from a parallel reality. So it kind of gives you a different sense of where KHONSHU's from, like more alien in that sense. I would choose something like a very progressive rock soundtrack for them. So I'm thinking, again, this could be making me so dated. Mars Volta, something like that, where it's rock, but they do explore more soundscapes, and it becomes a little bit more epic as well. So that would be for the Lemire run. Finally, last two actually. The Bemis run. Bemis run's easy. I'd stick punk in the Bemis run and rock as well. I'm going to easily say anything. Max Bemis's. I'm going to say. Where should I fit Delita? Delita are great friends of the show, suppliers of a fantastic music on our opening theme. Delita, I would put Delita. I'll probably put, I would. Well, that makes sense as well. Their EP, The Other Void. I'll put Delita up in the Ellis run, if anything. That sort of music, that sort of tone as well. Although they could work very much, I think, in the Benson run too. But yeah, the Bemis run, definitely Max Bemis. Get your punk out there as well. Get your Dead Kennedys. There was an Australian punk band as well, Nancy Vandal. That would be pretty cool. More of the, I don't know what to say, more grittier punk rather than your clean mainstream punk like Green Day or all that. So a bit more rough around the edges. There's an Australian band. I don't know where they fit in, but I'm just going to let you know anyway. Whopping Big Naughty, one of my all-time faves. The lead singer, his name's Justin Credible. Can you believe it? They did absolutely total slacker punk rock. I don't know where they would fit in. Probably, I'd retrospectively put them either in the Bemis run, or I would put them in the Vengeance of the Moon Knight, actually. Very loose, well-crafted songs, but very kind of loose playing, and just, I love that kind of slack nature. So anyway, that was the Bemis run. And finally, I guess the current run, the Jed McKay run, interesting so far. I mean, from the issues that we've gleaned, only 2 of them, there is a dark nature to it. It does seem reminiscent of the Ellis run, so to speak. There is a dark noir sense to it. So yeah, that one I'm still up in the air in. I'm not too sure. That's a good one. I'll have to have another think. While I do that, I might I might go just have a quick look on the social media to see if anyone has bitten and have mentioned the music that they see associated with Moon Knight. Maybe not. I don't know. Let me see. Oh, we've got one here. Got one from Noel. Looney Tunes Tate. He says Deleter for all of it. Well, there you go, Noel. Yeah, why not? I highly recommend it. Actually, Deleter have a great catalogue. Go check it all out. I'm sure you can fit Deleter's music in any or all of the Moon Knight reads. You should, for sure, give it a go. Give it a go for sure. Let me just have another little quick geeze. As I think that was it. I mean, I put it up really late, so I'm not expecting that much from it. I'm still thinking of the Jed McKay run. What to give him? Yeah. Okay. Cool. A couple of likes from that, but no one there. Fair enough. Might move on to to wrap up. To wrap up this first episode, Loonies, I might move on to Nightlines. So, just have some feedback here from some listeners about some older episodes. And first up, actually, we've got a bit from YouTube. So I want to give a shout out to Car Eternal, Kyle Carr, one of the Patronis, and he makes mention on episode 230. Just recently, so Shooting the Breeze with Noel. And Car Eternal, or Kyle, says, hi, yes, it's me, the Patroni. On the speculation of Hulk being in the Moon Knight show, I really hope it's not true. While having the character show up to really establish it in the MCU would make sense, I fear it would take the focus off our dear Moon Knight. I felt the same way with the rumours of Punisher being in it from a few months ago, though I think that rumour would be even worse as people might care more about him coming back from Netflix. Yeah, good point, Kyle. I wouldn't want anything to take away from the spotlight of Moon Knight. One of the big draw cards, I think, is that we do have Oscar Isaac as Moon Knight, and he's an incredibly charismatic actor. I don't think he'll fall into the background. I think you'll get him front and centre, and I'm certainly hoping that too. My thoughts on that Hulk thing, yeah, I won't play much speculation into it other than it might be just a happy coincidence he was there. And yeah, Punisher in Moon Knight. Look, I've heard that go the rounds as well. It's an obvious kind of rumor, but I don't think there's anything of it. And I don't expect to see John Bernthal in the Disney Plus show at all. So yeah, let's hope. Another one from commenting about episode 230. It's from CMK7. Beep boop, beep boop, boop. So this is Chris talking about Shooting the Breeze with Noel. Great coverage of all the tidbits of news out there, guys. The Spider-Man trailer does look promising. I'm excited to see what they do with it, especially with all the rumoured appearances. Speaking of rumoured appearances, if there is anything to mark Ruffalo turning up in Budapest, maybe Banner is showing up at the end of the Moon Knight series to recruit him to the Avengers. Ooh. As a callback to early Moon Knight being featured in the Hulk magazine. I love this connection, Chris. There is that connection, isn't there? As Samuel also mentioned. I'd love this little callback. I guess that's a reach. Anyway, great show, and I hope you feel better soon, Ray. Thank you so much, Chris. Feeling a bit better. I still got that cough, so I've had to hit the mute button a couple of times here. But, I don't know. It's one of those bugs that just won't go away. Also, as well, I put this in here. Olivia, she has dropped in thoughts on episode 226. That's Moon Knight Hand to Hand. And Olivia writes, your perspective is refreshing. Thank you so much, Olivia. Although I do think that you might be a sex bot or something. Judging from your profile pic, I thought it was pretty funny anyway. Just put you in here. Thank you so much. And your comments are very refreshing about how my perspective is refreshing. So, refreshing all round. Thank you, Olivia. Anyway, back to some real comments. We have another one from Karl Carr, and this is on our next episode 231, which was the classic review of Moon Knight 20, that finale to the Third World Army and Nimrod Strange. And Kyle mentions, honestly, the whole Nimrod Strange storyline is my least favourite of the whole early run. But this issue specifically is just so awesome. Interesting, Carl, because, Noel and I kind of thought otherwise, we really enjoyed the other issues, not so much issue 20. Very few things are as cool as surrounding the island, in the island with giant explosives, and the image of the ship burning is just awesome. Yeah, look, I tend to agree. I think the strong point for that issue, and I think I mentioned it, was this thought that Mensch had given to this diabolical plan, and how it would kill 97% of the people on the island. It's horrifying to think, to burn, burning on the perimeter, and then just it all kind of goes inwards and just burns everyone in. So yeah. Thank you for those comments there, Kyle. Always great to hear from you, and it was great to hear from you too as well, Chris, and of course Olivia. Fantastic. If you can please send in more refreshing comments, that would be really cool. We got more Instagram comments here, and this is on the issue 20, the cut adrift off the coast of America, that finale with Nimrod Strange. Rafael Santos, fantastic artist. You can see his work. We post it up weekly on the Monday/Tuesday. Raf says, I was happy to see Moon Knight beating terrorists. This is the kind of thing that makes us think how many different stuff Mark has amongst his villains. Also, this cover is great. I love this perspective, and I don't know why Marvel editors or artists didn't make a homage to this cover in his Avengers run. It was kind of appropriated for that event. Yeah, great comments. Thanks, Raf. It's a very cool cover, and I'll just... oh no, I won't say. Oh yeah, look, I'll just tag along another comment from SK Metal. Says great cover, taps into so many things. So yeah, the cover's very striking, and yeah, beating terrorists, a lot more kind of, I guess, appropriate in recent times, which is cool. And we do see that with Moon Knight anyway. I mean, mostly just kind of grounded street level villains, and Nimrod Strange. Well, albeit normal, if you put him in his Arsenal gear, he just becomes an idiot. And we've got some Final comments here. Make Mine, Moon Knight. Nimrod Strange has MCU potential. Love this arc. He does. I think he needs a reboot of his costume, though. Anyway, Make Mine, Moon Knight continues. Seeing Marlene go undercover and hold her own. She's my top pick to replace Mark as Moon Knight, if it ever came to it. Close second is Ray from the Houston Benson series. Great thoughts there, Make Mine, Moon Knight. And SK Metal actually responded to this saying, I always thought if Marvel went there, Marlene would be my choice too. Houston showed us just how capable and violent she could be too. Yeah, she's definitely can hold her own, and that's again one of the things I loved from that Nimrod Strange arc. It just showed her kicking ass, and she's done that many times as well. There's some instances. I loved it. There was this like Jeep car chase in Mark Spector Moon Knight, which she pretty much takes control of. I just love seeing Marlene in action. She should be more in it. I hope we do see that in the TV show, but we'll see. Anyway, Loonies, that pretty much wraps up this Ray Ramble for the Idle Chat. Thank you so much for sticking by, and hopefully you got some recommendations for some music there. I'll try to put them in the show notes if you ever are interested. Also obscure Australian bands, if you just want to try something different. And also let me know what music you would put to these different runs as well. I've got the post up there, so maybe in a future episode, if it does fill up with some comments, I can read it out and we can share our musical ideas. But a huge thank you. Next episode, later on in the week, I will be looking at... it'll be a waxing crescent. So, returning to a Lunatic modern comic run review, and be looking at Moon Knight Volume 5, Issue 13. Now, we've covered this a few times before already, the uses of restraint. It's a fantastic issue. I'm going to have a revisit and see how it all pans out. I did have... Where is it? So previously, if you look at our episodes 43 or episode 96 or episode 171, we actually did an audio reproduction of the whole issue. Go check that out. Maybe listen to that and get familiar with the issue, or read it and come back later in the week and I'll discuss it at length. Anyway, thank you very much, Looney listeners, for all your attention, and I'll catch you next week. Oh, not what am I saying? Ray, switch on. I'll catch you later on in the week for our Lunatic Modern Run review. Alright, catch you later. Please consider checking out our Into the Night Patreon page on patreon.com/ITKMoonKnight. There are plenty of incentives there, like uncut material, bonus episodes, and more, and any contribution will help expand the show. We're sponsored by Fringe Night by Daniel Doing, and you can support his Patreon page at patreon.com/FringeNight27. Also, Tombs by Drew Tombs can be supported via his SoundCloud website on soundcloud.com/Tombs with a Z. Drew Tombs also produces horror and sci-fi based music on Lurk Music. That's Lurk Music with a CK. And you can support his music on Bandcamp at lurkmusic.bandcamp.com. We're also sponsored by Dreamland Comics, the superhero superstore. Use the code MOON to get a promo of 20% off any online back issues. Finally, we're part of The Collective, which is an informal network of like-minded podcasters. It's a repository of ideas, and we also like crossing over and supporting each other. Please check out all of these shows in our show notes under The Collective. Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Material used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.